Today, we're taking you into the world of criminal profiling and examining how one woman's insights shaped the very foundation of the FBI's profiling techniques. Our journey focuses on Dr. Ann Burgess, a pioneer in forensic psychology and the inspiration for the character of Dr. Wendy Carr in the Netflix series Mindhunter. From her early studies of trauma to her work with FBI agents tracking serial killers, Dr. Burgess brought groundbreaking ideas to criminal psychology that changed the way we view the minds of dangerous criminals. In the 1970s, she began researching the psychological effects of trauma on victims, a relatively new field. She worked with sexual assault survivors and combat veterans, analyzing how these intense traumas affected their lives. What she uncovered went far beyond clinical treatment. She began to see patterns and identify behavioral markers that could predict certain actions. Her work attracted the attention of law enforcement and eventually the FBI. At the time, the FBI had begun investigating serial killers, such as David Berkowitz, also known as the Son of Sam. Traditional investigative methods weren't providing enough insight into these killers' motives, so the FBI began interviewing convicted serial killers, trying to decipher why they committed such heinous crimes. But they needed a scientific framework, someone to help them make sense of the interview data and the patterns they were observing. Dr. Ann Burgess was the missing piece. Dr. Burgess began working with agents like John Douglas and Robert Ressler, names that would become legendary in criminal profiling. Their role? To provide psychological analysis and create models for understanding violent offenders. Their insights helped the FBI see that these killers weren't driven by random impulses, but by specific, identifiable patterns and motives. Their theories laid the groundwork for what we know today as criminal profiling. One of her early contributions was the development of a classification system for violent criminals. She identified patterns of behavior that seemed to be consistent across multiple cases. Dr. Burgess understood that there was a significant difference between the organized and the disorganized criminal. This distinction became critical to FBI profiles. It helped investigators understand not only how a killer committed a crime, but why. This may sound like standard procedure today, but at the time it was revolutionary. With Dr. Burgess's framework, FBI agents could look at a crime scene and begin to piece together characteristics about the perpetrator. Age, occupation, personality traits, based solely on the evidence left behind. It proved that behavioral analysis wasn't just about understanding the crime, it was about understanding the criminal's mind. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, she consulted on some of the most notorious cases, from Ted Bundy to Jeffrey Dahmer. Her work helped agents understand that these criminals often had deep-seated psychological problems, many stemming from childhood trauma. She also emphasized that while there were similarities among offenders, each had unique motivations and triggers. Her goal was to help agents not only catch these killers, but also understand them in a way that could prevent future crimes. One of Dr. Burgess's most groundbreaking studies was her focus on sexual violence as a precursor to other violent crimes. She demonstrated that offenders often escalate from seemingly minor offenses to more violent acts. This insight has been invaluable to law enforcement, allowing them to catch offenders earlier by recognizing these escalation patterns. Many experts credit Dr. Burgess's work with leading to innovations in predicting and even preventing future crime. In fact, Dr. Burgess's techniques became so influential that other countries adopted her methods. She has worked with various international law enforcement agencies, helping them develop behavioral profiles for criminals in their unique cultural contexts. It's one thing to influence the FBI, it's another to see your methods replicated around the world. Beyond her work with the FBI, Dr. Burgess's contributions have had a profound impact on how victims are treated in the criminal justice system. Her research on trauma has led to increased support services for victims of violent crime and improvements in how law enforcement approaches sexual violence cases. Dr. Burgess was one of the first to argue that victimology, the study of victims, is just as important as criminal profiling. By understanding a killer's choice of victim, investigators could learn much about the criminal's mindset and motives. Her influence extends beyond the real world. In 2017, the Netflix series Mindhunter brought her pioneering work into popular culture. The character of Dr. Wendy Carr, based on Dr. Burgess, introduced millions of people to the idea of criminal profiling and behavioral science. But while Mindhunter dramatized aspects of her work, Dr. Burgess's real-life contributions are no less exciting and impactful. In the years since she began her work, Dr. Burgess has remained a vital figure in the field. Even as she approaches the end of her career, she continues to consult on active cases and teach the next generation of forensic psychologists. Her contributions have cemented her legacy as a pioneer and visionary. So the next time you watch a crime drama, remember that the intricate psychological profiles, the nuanced insights into the criminal mind, all have their roots in the work of Dr. Ann Burgess. Her commitment to understanding trauma, her insights into criminal behavior, and her compassion for victims have not only reshaped criminal psychology, but also paved the way for a more humane and effective approach to law enforcement. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the life and legacy of Dr. Ann Burgess. If you're as fascinated by criminal profiling as we are, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more insights into the minds of the masterminds behind real-life investigations.